Hi, everybody. It's Morgan from Streamily, and I am so excited to have here with us today the cast and creator of Paranormal Dead End Park. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, if you guys want to go around, introduce yourselves, tell us where people can find you just to get us all started.
Well, I instinctively went first because I'm so important. But I'm also the least interesting person here. I'm Hamish, and I am credited as the creator of the show, but truly, we all made it together. 200 plus crew, and I wrote the books that it's all based on, and thank you all for coming. You've all been really nice. That wasn't really an explanation of who I am, but I feel like most people here will know. I don't stop tweeting. I'm really an irritating person.
Well, I'm really bad at tweeting. And my name is Cody Kavita. I voice Norma. And that's that. I don't know. What else did you say? What am I supposed to say? Thank you for being here. I'm nervous, obviously. Yeah. Zach?
I'm Zach. And yeah, I love Hamish being like, I'm not that important. I wrote the books that these were based on, but no, I play Barney. I'm really excited to be doing this. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And that's Levi.
Your name is covering him a bit.
Yeah.
I also have a dog that will probably start barking at some point because he's just a puppy and doesn't yet grasp that this house has other rooms and I'm not just gone forever. But he is being cared for. He's not left alone.
Well, we have so many people already commenting. We see all of your comments. They're saying hi. They're also hi.
Every time I do one of these things, there's always like a few people going like, wait, he's British? And I just feel like, I'm sorry. I know some crimes are unforgivable, but I am.
There's a question that we must know. They're wanting to know, is your dog also a pug?
No, if that's to me, I think it's pretty obvious Levi isn't. No, my dog is not. He's a whippet. Probably the the other end of the dog spectrum. If you had to design, like, draw every kind of dog there is, you put pug at one end and maybe a whippet at the other. People think I love pugs. I think they're fine. They're great. But Pugsley is not actually named after a pug. He's named after my pet guinea pig I had when I was a kid.
Oh my God.
Hello.
I have a question.
Who in turn was named after Pugsley Abbott?
Okay, yes, that's what I was going to ask.
Because he was like black and looked kind of like he had spiky hair. He looked like a Tim Burton drawing. He was just this like little ball of goth. And so I called him Pugsley.
That's so cute. Well, guys, if you're watching this right now, just so you know that their shops are still open, you can go to streamily.com and go to Dead End Paranormal Park and find all of these awesome prints. Today, they will not be signing during the live, but they will come back and sign another time. I think, Cody, you said you're going to do Instagram after this, which is awesome. But today we're going to just ask questions, get to know the cast and creator a bit more. So if you guys have any questions, if you're watching and want to know something, ask in the comments. I have a question here because I have honestly never seen an animated show so diverse and so rich in the characters, and it's really not even the first of its kind with animation, but almost in TV in general. I wanted to know how you think the show impacts not only people that are watching it, but the future of television.
Well, TV is broken and I have mended it single-handedly. I don't know. It's so funny. Like, I kind of knew all of these conversations would come, but during production, I know this is just sounds like humble bragging, whatever, but we really just didn't think about it because it's based on a comic which was based on a web comic, and web comics have always been, I think, a little ahead of the curve when it comes to things like that because they're so grassroots and just, I made it about me and my friends. So it was during the process turning like a little web comic into a huge Netflix show that those conversations first started happening. I don't know if it's affecting anything. Hopefully.
I
Well,
mean,
it-
just
it-
watching. I binge watched the whole first season, by the way, last night. I was just like, every single episode gets more and more diverse and rich, and you're not just dealing with the diversity itself, but also mental health struggles and anxiety and real life issues, within an animated show, which is beyond. So I definitely think it's such a huge impact to everybody who watches it.
Well, I was gonna say like, I think that the slow burn of changing television is that you like. I mean, I don't know, and I imagine Cody and Hamish also get lots of these, but like the messages of like young people being like, "Oh, this is so important to me," and that the like reverberations. I mean, unfortunately, people don't value what kids care about a lot of the time, and that sucks because like young people matter a lot, and like things shouldn't have less value just because like kids like it, but like the hope is that those like the like ripple effect of like it mattering so much to people is that eventually it becomes more apparent to people who have the capacity and power to make this stuff. But yeah, I think it's been really nice to know that Hamish and the writers and animators really covered the bases. It makes my job a lot easier because then I can just be like, yeah, it's very good. And I had a lot of people commenting like, how could you do this? And I'm like, well, I didn't. Take it up with Hamish.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of Zach, my favorite part about this show, and honestly children's animation these days in general, is the fact that I not only get messages from young kids that are like, oh my gosh, I see myself, but I get messages from adults who say, this is the show I needed when I was young. Actually, Coco messaged me and said that. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Like, even with Norma, like I see a lot of myself in Norma. And sorry, my light's flickering. It's spooky in my house, I guess. Anyway, and it obviously there's the creative part of acting, voiceover, animation, all of that. But I think with all art, there's always a deeper there's a secondary mission, if you will, more than just to entertain. And I think that's what this show does. And I'm just really excited. And I hope that, talking about the future of shows and TV, I hope that other people take notice and see how many people this show has affected and how important it's been for people to see themselves. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I always you said nice things about me, but also thank you. I mean, one of the things I always try and say is that this didn't come out of nowhere, and we do owe a lot of what we were able to do to other shows and other showrunners that have been kind of in this fight. And it is a pretty small industry. Like, I've been able to tell some of those showrunners, like, thank you for helping to pave the path, and like, you just hope to make that path like a little bit wider and a little bit more welcoming on your way down, so that even more shows like this can happen. So
yeah. Absolutely. Piggybacking off of that, we see so many. I mean, one of the greatest parts of the show that I personally love is the horror aspect. But we see so many fears that are faced, whether it's Norma being afraid of making friends, or we have the sleep deprived children zombies. um, what would you say would be your advice to those who are trying to face their fears? These big questions.
Okay,
It wasn't where I was expecting the question to go.
I will preface with I think I'm a little freak, but when I'm like afraid of something, my like first instinct is to like look directly at it. My brother used to hide this little preserved octopus in my room, like to freak me out, and I became very afraid of octopus.
I mean, that's terrifying. So,
But I really like looking at them also. But the whole time I'm like, this sucks. I don't know how to explain it, but I think that there was like something that really helped me was like learning a lot about the thing. I'm not saying like it's always that simple, particularly if the fear is like coming out or like, which I know that's like part of what Barney goes through. Or like a family member that's really not supportive. But I do think learning about it and can provide solidarity, because when you like look it up and everybody's like, yeah, same, you're like, oh, okay, great. Or you look it up and you're like, I can look this in the face. And if you can't, that's okay too. Like, I don't want there to be any kind of expectation on it, because I think someone said Gord gives octopus vibes, and I really resent that. I mean, I respect you a lot for thinking that, but like Gord is perfect. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think to the capacity we can look these things in the face, it's helpful, but I also like recognize the limitations on that. You know.
I think what I really liked about the way that this show handled Norma's fear, at least in season 1, episode 3, was the fact that she obviously has so much fear of the real world, and the first part of the episode is her trying to like keep it all in and avoid it and not face it. And I, like Zach said, sometimes facing your fears can be a good thing. And I think what was nice about this show is, in a way, it almost encourages you to think about your fear as not a bad thing, but as a superpower. I mean, she exploded somebody with her fear, which I think that's pretty cool. But I think especially for my own self, when it comes to facing my fears or my anxiety, just sitting with it has been a big help for me. And I think that's kind of what this show does in a way. At least in that episode, she acknowledges it, she expresses it to her friends, and in the end, it doesn't destroy her. It makes her stronger, and it helps her friends bond with her even more. I don't think I answered the question now that I think of it, but just adding to what Zach said.
I think, yeah, fear is fine. And I think too many people pretend they aren't scared of things in order to seem tough. This might be a little political, but I genuinely think stuff like climate change denial and, anti-vax stuff, a lot of it just comes from people being too afraid to sort of admit they're scared of something, and then they try and like justify, well, it's not actually real, so there's no reason to be scared. But like, I mean, what if it is boiled down, people are just scared of being stabbed by a needle, or scared of the future, or scared of whatever, and if they could just be like, hey, hands up, I'm scared, what's going on, maybe the world would be a better place. I don't know. I'm like very arachnophobic, and this is like one little thing, is for a comic I am writing at the moment, a future comic. I've decided to make the villain entirely spider themed in order to like, because I'm so scared of spiders that if I like even scroll past a picture of one, I will like, it will ruin my day. So I'm like, I'm not ready to like, full Indiana Jones cave style, like get covered in spiders. But if I can at least just like look at spiders on the computer, that would actually solve a lot of problems in my life. Am I freezing a lot?
No, not at all. Oh,
Oh, right now. Wow.
Yeah, you like
just for
well, that was wild. You didn't freeze once, and then just right when you said that, you like.
Can I ask a question before our next question? Is there someone waiting in our waiting room or not?
Yes.
Sorry.
On in. Hi, Emily.
Yay!
Thank you for waiting. Hi.
Oh my God, I've just been sitting here listening and just enjoying this. Like, they'll let me in whenever they want. I'm also here.
Quickly, Emily, your thoughts on fears and the state of animation and television, and also who you are.
21. All right, here we go. No, you've covered it all already. I would like a new question. That was fabulous.
Well, I was just looking at this beautiful comment right here that I wanted to bring up from Cam. It says, "Hi, I want to thank you guys for creating such an amazing show. As a fellow trans man, I cried the first time I met Barney. I have never felt more represented or seen, and I know others feel the same."
That's sweet.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As far as like, because I mean, it is such a huge thing. I've never seen a show with a trans character being the main character of the show, especially in animation. And so many people who are watching the show are getting to see themselves for the first time, as we talked about a little bit earlier. But do you have any advice for those who may be watching the show and don't feel ready to come out yet, or feel like they want to come out and they may have a situation like Barney in the show where his family may not really be 100% on board?
Hamish, would you like to start?
Well, I was gonna say something. This isn't just to like get Emily involved, like get to connect it to Courtney, but there is actually a reason for. Here's the funny thing: we have a trans lead character, and Norma's on the autism spectrum, and the amount of trans and autistic fans I talk to who are like, "Courtney's me. I'm so represented by Courtney," or "I feel so represented by Pugsley." And it's because a lot of shows only deal in like subtext when they talk about these things. And one thing that we wanted to do is kind of have both, where like there's the overt representation that's there and undeniable. But through Courtney and Pugsley, you still get to tell stories about people who don't fit in or people who feel different, and maybe they don't even know why yet. And while the problems that Barney and Norma face are quite specific, even though I think they're relatable to loads of people, through Courtney and Pugsley, I feel even more people. It's weird to feel like I feel represented by the demon, but like what Courtney goes through in terms of feeling out of place and like being, I guess, scared of like getting that newfound family and sort of running away from it because it doesn't feel right. I think a lot of shows only deal in one or the other. And I think, I don't know, I think a lot of people who don't know why they feel different sort of get drawn to those characters.
And I'll just to expand on that, and then I'll answer the bit about advice. Courtney, one of my favorite things about Courtney is that in season 2 we find
I'm
out.
so glad I joined. This is great.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Go ahead. Come on.
Is that beyond the expert performance? Is that she opts out of her actual family, and opts into this other one. And I think we talk about chosen family as like what we choose to be part of, or the people that come into our life. Sometimes it almost sounds like almost inherently out of necessity, like we have chosen family because we don't have this other thing. But I love the implication, and this happens with Barney as well when he chooses to reconnect with his family, that we have as much a right to opt into our blood family, for lack of a better term, as any other relationship in our life, and our extremely entitled to decide what our relationships look like. So, and I talk about this in lots of my interviews, but like, yeah, Courtney is actually the character I relate to the most, because I have just so many times been like the one where everybody's like, not now. My defense mechanism is so similar. And also, it's such a, it is like, it feels like a character that's always responding to the like child urges that we all have, which also feels very queer in a way, but also just very human. And in terms of advice, like, I don't know, I had this conversation pretty recently with a young person. But like, the truth is, like, I didn't really start to see trans people as beautiful until I had a lot of trans friends and like watched a lot of trans people on TV. Because I was like, oh, I think they're hot, so maybe someone will find me hot. And that's not the whole goal, but like, I was like, I'm lovable, you know? And I think I needed evidence of that. And I think it speaks to why we need the show. But I get my biggest advice is just to like, and I'm not going to do the like, you have to love yourself before you live. I think on some level that's not always possible for people. Like, I think it's a tough expectation to say you have to love yourself before you love other people. But if you have community that can love you and demonstrate what that looks like, it can expedite it. And if you don't have access to that, finding it online or just watching things that show what is available to us, even if it's not perfect representation, because even that might not be accessible, is I think a huge first step. Because yeah, I don't think it's not a thing that happens overnight, but I think gathering evidence that there's unconditional love for you, as hard a task as it is pretty important. Yeah.
That was very well said.
Love that. Just to kind of go polar opposite of the topics, I'm interested of how you guys felt about doing the musical episode. Can you give me a little insight of how that went? And both as the creator, but also as voice actors doing the musical episode, how do you feel surrounding it?
I mean, I can go on about this for ages, but like, what did you all think when you first, like, I think we had told you really early that there was going to be a musical episode, and I kept wanting to send the demos like as soon as possible, but then they came a little bit later than I hoped. Like, what did you think? Like, I'm curious.
I was thrilled. I was very excited, and I was also slightly nervous to conquer the musical episode because Courtney's dialect and her guttural, grovelly tone that she has on this show, I was afraid would need to be translated also into song, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to do that. And I was grateful that we just wanted to create simply a musical episode, and I was able to kind of sing in my own voice, which thank God, because I don't think I would have been able to do it otherwise. But the music was so impressive, and it united us even more singing together. And for a show that was created at the height of the pandemic, when a lot of times doing this show was the only reason I left the house to go to a tiny safe space in Burbank to record and work and be creative. I was so grateful for that. And to also incorporate music was just wonderful. I had such a fabulous time, and working with Patrick, who all of you thought I didn't know who Patrick was, which you'll have to tell that story. Please.
I've always been curious if you knew who he was. I'll be honest.
No, I'm just highly sarcastic. Yeah.
Okay, then I have been telling this. I don't know if you fooled him. No, I mean, so yeah, Patrick, I did know who he was. He has the most recognizable voice ever. I can't say I like could list all of the Fall Out Boy discography or anything.
Do it now.
I had a very different musical trajectory, which was a lot more like Kylie and Sugar Babes and things. I never had a cool phase. I was always this. And but yeah, I was really excited. I actually kind of think that helped because we had a few people audition, Crewman and Diamond, who actually wrote the Just Some Guy song, they also auditioned to kind of work on the episode, and I'm so glad that we were able to get their song in there, because I knew that Patrick was the right person, but losing Just Some Guy genuinely would break my heart. So that was cool. And so I could be a little objective because I didn't have the same I guess history of him. Some other producers on the show could not be objective, and they were just bouncing up and down at the thought of him working on it. And he was so nice and so went above and beyond what he was paid to do, because he just got so into the show. He voices Josh. He even came back for season 2 to voice Josh for a completely non-musical episode. He's just we need some grunts, and he was okay. But yeah, so I remember when we recorded Alex, he was I learned how to sing through listening to Fall Out Boy. When we recorded with Zach, you were that was the first gig I ever went to, first concert. And then Emily, which I'm now realizing is sarcastic, said wow, you're a really good singer. Do you do this professionally? Which is such an obvious joke.
Oh, that's really fun. Is she kidding? I don't know. And I think he laughed. I don't know. I was you should really quit your day job and stop using and just sing on the road on tour somewhere. Man, do you want to be in my band?
You wouldn't know he was a big rock star.
You wouldn't at all. No.
He would do these Zooms. He would be finishing his breakfast burrito and being hey, and he was so complimentary. He maybe, I don't know if I should say this, but he does mix a bunch of albums and work with loads of other singers, and he said that our actors are better than most professional singers, and I think that's part of musical singing, because there's so much performance and acting, and they always sound great. I believe, Emily, you were the last person we recorded.
Really?
And,
yeah, because I remember singing to a track that had a lot of people already on it, so that would make sense.
And I mean, you're all kind of main characters in your own way, but I think if it was Dead End the musical and you had to choose who is the lead, I think Courtney is at that episode, just because you have the I Want song and all of these reprises. And so there was I think we recorded everyone before Christmas, and then there was this big gap of time we recorded you after, and it was the musical is mostly here, but we don't have a lead. I too was a little not worried for you. I knew you could sing, but that character voice, which but yeah, you excelled beyond our wildest dreams. You all did, and I really like it. I mean, I'll let you speak again in a second, but obviously making a show is a dream come true, but getting to write a musical is a dream inside that dream, and it's something I've always wanted to do, and had the best people to work with to do it.
It's such a fun episode. The scene where Norma's on stage and the background just shatters everywhere. It's it's so fun.
What did you think, Cody, when you first got that song?
When I first got the song, I was going through the sheet music and learning it, and I noticed at the top of the page it said Patrick Stump, and I was oh, I wonder what else this guy has done. And then I looked up, I was oh wait, that Patrick Stump, as if there's another one. But I text Kenny, who voices Logs, and I was Kenny, look at who wrote these songs. And then he texts me back, he's oh my God, and we were freaking out together. But I was just, well, I think when I got the demo and the sheet music, I was a little intimidated, because obviously it's a very big song, and at the same time that we were recording the show, at least the first season, I was also personally going through a really big health battle, and the condition that I had affected my breathing, and I was really nervous going into recording, because I was I'm not going to be able to do this. They've asked so much and I can't deliver, and I was very nervous. But I actually had surgery 4 weeks before we recorded the song, and that fixed it. And so going into recording, I was like, let's do this. So I mean, even after we recorded though, I was a little like, I hope that was enough. But everybody was so nice. And I was like, I think it's okay. But then seeing it animated, I was like, okay, I'm happy. I think it's okay. So yeah, it was just such a cool experience being able to not only sing for a show, but to sing a song like that. Just an absolute like wailing song, and it's being such an important moment for Norma. It's just really cool. Yeah.
Wailing is a good word. I remember listening to this and I'm like, oh, he wrote like a 27-second refrain where I'm just holding one singular note. Can't wait.
That is the one downside of working with Patrick Stump, is that his demos are more of a
songs that we'd all listen to.
Yeah, they're a challenge. They're like throwing down the gauntlet. But still, I mean, we were casting the show while writing it, and it was so funny. I had to like find clips of you singing to give him vague heads up of like, everyone's voices, basically.
You found clips of all of us singing and sent it to Patrick before.
I won't say what clips I sent.
Yeah. My follow-up question was, what did you send him?
I'm not certain. It was easier for some than others. I don't actually know if I fully did. I mean, we by the time you actually had signed on, I think the songs were already starting to get written. I've said this a few times. The only like major change in the writing process when we were casting was originally Pugsley kind of didn't have a song. He like had the little bit in the opening song, and we originally like wanted to start the episode with this like Rocky Horror parody of like Pugsley's mouth on the screen sort of singing about it's the Dead End musical episode, but it was like a very short song. And then as we were writing, it became funnier that like the musical came out of nowhere and it didn't like advertise itself at the start so much. But yeah, then we cast Alex and we like had to have a song and had to basically do a duet with his two singing voices. And that actually affected the way this show was written, because I don't even think like we thought Tema Locus was going to come back really so much until we realized he had to sing. He had to sing in that voice. Two other little memories of the musical episode. One is that for a couple of the songs we have a full orchestra, and we watched the orchestra on Zoom from Budapest. We were just like all on Zoom invited to watch this really grainy video of people playing our music, which was very surreal. And the only other thing, she's not here, but Michaela J. Rodriguez, who plays Zagan, she has a few lines of singing. And and she's such a good singer. And we recorded Patrick's version, which was like a little lower and a little less like, showy. And she recorded it great. It was all great. And like the session was over and she was sort of walking away. And then she came back to the mic and said, "Can I take you to church? Like, can we do this? Can we do that again? But like, can we do it my way?" And then just kind of went, the version that's in the episode is like, I don't think you've heard the original, but it was like a lot more humble, shall we say? And seeing someone go like, actually, no, I can outdo Patrick. This will be easy. It was really funny. But yeah, it was a huge highlight.
My biggest beef in the world is that my friends all got to see her in Little Shop right before it stopped showing, and I really wish I'd gotten to see it. But when I got the email, I sprinted like in socks into my living room and like I hit the ground. And I was like, don't cuss. And was like, listen to this to my roommate just to snip it. And I said, that is Patrick Stump, correct? Because I didn't even bother to look at the lead sheet because I was so excited. And my roommate went, oh my God, yeah, it is. And I was like, because as a kid, I went to the Believers Never Die tour that they did with Cobra Starship. And I was a huge follower. I still am. I know loads and loads of their music. And also Patrick went to my high school. We grew up in the same town. And so he was like a legend. So I like really grew up like tailing like, you know, and a huge fan. And it just felt very funny, full circle for me as a kid going to see his concert and then getting to work with him was like deeply surreal. And then I would drive around listening to the demos, like in my car on Google Drive. I would just have them like playing, and because I loved them so much. And actually everybody's song was so, and okay, so the other funny thing was that my song was actually written by Kuman Diamond. And I was like, I remember being like, I'm really grateful that Patrick didn't record my song because I think I would be so intimidated. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just a really cool experience to work with him because it was like nice to work with someone who didn't like make me feel like an amateur, even though I knew a lot less. And he had the ability to be like, oh yeah, sometimes I struggle with harmonies. This is how I like hold the note in my head. That was really neat. And in terms of like, also I was going to say, yesterday I was watching a television show and they were doing a challenge with all the sins. And I had to like go through the part of Courtney's song and just like, I was like, okay, I know them all. I'm just going to like deep down inside, envy, pride, wrath, gluttony, sloth, lust, greed. Yeah. And I was like, okay, we got them. Because we couldn't remember envy. And we were like, what is the other one? And so all the songs live in my head constantly. Norma's songs sound so much like a Fall Out Boy song that I was like,
They all do.
listen to this every day. And yeah, and it was just really wonderful to work on. I mean, just like as a fan, but also like as a performer, like it was just like a gift. And I and also just like what it meant to get to do like a gay love song for me. Like someone who used to like torrent Queer as Folk and like the L Word, so the two toxic parts of my brain, like back to back in high school, like on my like first ever computer, not even in high school, in middle school, and like hope that like nobody walked in. Like like it's in my lifetime that shift happened in a lot of ways in terms of media, where it stopped being taboo, and it made me quite emotional actually. Yeah.
I have a similar experience to that, and definitely, again, making the whole show in the pandemic, I was just at this desk the whole time making the show, and it meant that we did. I mean, I'm also really grateful that we had the show during that time, but it meant there were certain things I felt we missed out on, and
We never met.
Yeah.
no, I've never met Emily. I was able to. I've been to New York and LA, and I met most of the cast, but there's still a few gaps. I actually haven't met Jamie, who plays Fingers, who's the only cast member in the UK.
Well, that's on you.
Yeah, but he's blowing up at the moment. He's probably very busy. But yeah, when we were recording Zach's and Barney's song, that was definitely a moment of stepping back and realizing that we were actually doing all the things that I wanted to do with my career. And I got very emotional when you were recording that. I was probably like a tiny little square on your screen, like a pixel being like, yep, do it again. But I was like crying.
Yeah. Did you, because my experience, I believe, was different from Cody and Zach, but I went into an actual studio to record. I didn't do it from home. Cody, I think you did it from home, right?
I did everything from home.
That must have been really hard.
Yeah, I think the only episode I did in studio was All Dolled Up. That one I did in studio.
Okay.
That was my last record, actually. But yeah, everything was literally from right here.
Yeah. I remember you having, stuff up on the walls to help with the sound. And
Yeah.
I mean, I auditioned from home, and I do a lot of animation stuff from home because I work in music as well. So I have a studio that is now set up. But at the time, I was so grateful to be able to go in and see Hamish in like a little square up on a TV screen, like over here. And it was hard to read the room. I couldn't tell, was it working? Was it funny? Because you're so far away. And I rely so much on energy and reactions of other people when I'm working, and I couldn't see anybody, and I wasn't in the room with any of you, and it was hard. But it was, again, as you were saying, it was having something during the pandemic to just have a creative outlet with was very, very nice.
Yeah, we were casting the show in March 2020, so our first few callbacks were in studios, and then they started becoming, I remember Emily in your kitchen.
Yep.
I always say this, but the funniest one to me was Kenny, who auditioned under his bedsheet to get the sound right. And he was the best guy for the job, but I can't deny that was very endearing and showed a real I mean, I remember we kind of edited all your voices together to make sure the show sounded good, but Emily was just a ghost, sort of echoey among them, and some people sounded really big, but and I remember we sent out these kits to record everyone from home, but by the time we eventually got to record the first episode, most studios had worked out some kind of safety procedure, and it took longer. It meant that we had to have these big gaps between actors as they cleaned the rooms, but I was pretty impressed. I mean, I think all of us were probably pretty grateful that animation kept going.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was working on something else at the time in person at Warner Brothers, and I had just horrible anxiety going to work every day because it was terrifying. And then on other days, I just got to go and make this lovely little show, all by myself in a room, and it was therapeutic and great. Mm-hmm. And I so preferred doing that because it was such a terrifying time. Not that now isn't a terrifying time as well, but I'm just so grateful for it. And I just had so much fun. And I too would drive around in my car and listen to the musical demos, and it's lovely. I'm grateful for it endlessly.
Yeah, I've told the story a lot, but I just find it really interesting that after Alex's callback, he left the room to a text from his agent saying, "I think Broadway's closing today." And he was like, "What?" And so it was nice giving people, that opportunity during that time.
Yeah, certainly not on the same scale as Broadway, but I remember my callback was the one day it rains in LA, and I didn't have an umbrella. I finished my callback. I ran out to my car. I'm in my car soaking wet, and I got an email that I lost my job that day. And I was like, all right, it's fine. We're fine. And then shortly after that, Hamish told me that I got it. And I was like, okay, cool. But it just, it was a gift during a really hard time.
On the same scale as Broadway. No, I didn't get to go see Sonic. No.
For the longest time, the final film I'd ever seen at the cinema was a rowdy screening of Cats, where I went in costume.
No, that was actually my last film as well, and my roommates and I talked about it, and I felt like a fever dream because the theater we were in had great sound, but there are some really odd moments where you just hear it felt like there was feet sweeping across the floor, and I was like, my last experience at the theater is me worrying that I was going to break from reality. But Cody, I don't know if we auditioned the same day or if it rained more than one day, but I also went on a rainy day.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, with Jen Redden, and it was so funny because there's 10 trans actors I always see on the list is the same as me, so I ran into 2 of them, and it was nice because I knew them, and it was nice to chat. And weirdly, Jen's assistant was from Chicago, so we talked about that, and I was like, this is such a friendly audition, I'm so relaxed. And I went in and then was I did awful, and then I went home and then was listening to the news and I was like, this is the worst week. It rained. Like, I just got my call back. And then it was just like such a like, I like cried when I got the call that I had gotten it, because it was, I just like couldn't imagine like a thing that I like, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but that I needed more in that moment than that. Like to know that we were going to get to do this, like really, like even the colors like of the character on the character breakdown sheet, like I was like, oh, this will be like someone we get to bring to life, and he's so like in these colors, and I don't know, it was just, it really like gave me something, and I feel very fortunate for that. I know it's like not the most relatable experience, but like getting to know that you're gonna get to like be part of something really big and special, it was like life-saving at that point. I think in a lot of ways made me way less crazy, made it a lot better that I didn't get to see Sonic in theaters.
Yeah. Speaking of color, that was something I loved about Norma from the comics, and then for the animated show is she's dark. And growing up, I never saw animated characters that were Indian or Pakistani, which actually I don't, what ethnicity is Norma? I should know that, but I don't. But anyway, just seeing dark ethnic characters on screen was just it's just really exciting knowing that I get to do that again, because Sunita from TMNT, she's also dark. So I was really grateful to you, Hamish, for, I don't know what the decision was behind that, but it means a lot.
I mean, with animation, there is this history of like characters not always being played by people who look like the actors. There's the Dead End short that's on YouTube I made like 10 years ago, and I didn't have a huge amount of say in the casting of that. And no, shade to the actual actors, they did a good job, but it was one of these like things I really wanted to do. We couldn't find a demon or a pug, so we had to make do with humans. But other than that, like I knew that I really wanted. I kept thinking about like a kid Googling who like played these characters, and I love the idea of them finding as close as we could get to just like the real cartoon character. Mm-hmm. And I mean this in the best possible way. You're both quite cartoony people. You're very like animated, and your social media is just like, not that you don't have to have a social media, but I felt I would be really like proud of you to both be like on the show. And we knew that this show, even if it wasn't big, things like this would happen. People would ask questions and write articles, and I knew we needed like advocates for the characters, not just people who like did the job and moved on. And I think you've done a really great job at that.
Thank you.
Can I just say the funniest thing about, I forget how funny screen names are until someone's like, well put, spaghetti. Like in the chat, I was like, what does that mean? And then I was like, oh, that's the name.
I'm looking at some of these comments here in the YouTube. There's a question for Hamish from Astrocomical. It says, was there anything in the comics you wanted to add to the show that may not have worked out?
Yeah, there's a few big omissions. To be honest, like as we wrote the show, we just like, I got really into the show version of the story, and it never really came as like some big note from Netflix saying cut this, cut this, cut this. It was just like it was just us writing as a team. Like I wrote all the comics on my own, and so having a room full of talented writers, I didn't want to just tell them like, this is how the story goes, rewrite it, put in your, swap the words around. So I'm trying to think, like there's one, I'm trying to avoid too many spoilers, but the finale of season 2 kind of combines a lot of the plot lines from the endings of book 1 and 2. It kind of like covers most of what's there, but there's still like huge, I think 2 things I'm thinking of are there's a whole storyline in the books about Norma becoming a ghost that is not in there.
Mhm.
And a lot of that comes from the fact that the second book is kind of about Barney and Norma losing touch with each other. It's sort of inspired by a friendship of mine, which we stopped talking over something so minor. And I know this is like a story everyone has where like, it's not that we fell out. It's not like we argued. It's that like, we both assumed the other one was upset with us. And it just like, the weeks and the months piled on and it became more and more hard to talk until we finally did and it was all fine. And that's what the second book's about. But I didn't want to, have the two characters not be with each other for the second season. It's to walk a little bit around another dramatic plot line. It's the reason why we shifted something that happens to Pugsley from the first season to the second season, because we wanted to have as much time with these characters in the in the status quo that we had. And then like another plot line is that in the first book there's this whole storyline about like time traveling warriors who like come from different eras. And so like both plot lines, there's time travel in the second season and there's an episode where Barney becomes a ghost, and that's kind of a little bit inspired by the Norma plotline. So like even everything that's like cut is still there in some kind of spirit. Haha, fun, ghosts. But I don't know. There's nothing that I'm like devastated that it was cut. No one told me you can't do that, and I'm like, oh, I should have been able to. I'm pretty happy with what we were able to do, and we got to expand a lot of things as well from the books.
I have a running joke with Mia, who wrote, Mia Rizala, who wrote both of the episodes I die in, that they have to kill me every season. But it always has to be them. I was like, well, now you have to kill me one more time. I loved being a ghost. I thought that was really fun. It was like, that's one of those things where it's like, I want to be a ghost, but I obviously don't want to die. So that's the next best thing, is I get to be Barney Ghost, which was a lot of fun.
I have a question for all of you guys. Do you have a favorite lesson that the show teaches, or a moment in the show, or even an episode?
My favorite lesson is that every show should have a musical episode.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. I so enjoyed Courtney's journey and how she personally feels stuck in an environment that doesn't feel like home to her. She doesn't have her people, she doesn't have her community, and she meets these rascals that drive her crazy. And I think it's always a good lesson to give people a second chance and to not judge ultimately the first thing that you see or hear or learn about someone. And the fact that she comes around and then ultimately learns something about herself that she had no idea was in the cards for her. Just to have patience with other people, I think, is a really good lesson that I took from Courtney.
Yeah. I think what I don't know if it's a lesson, but what I appreciate about this show is that it has threaded throughout the show subtle ways to be a friend, if you will. I think what I really liked is there's an episode, again, episode 3. If we were talking about favorite episode, it's that one. But there's a moment where Norma's on the beach and she's talking to Badia, and Badia kind of encourages her to give it another go. And she puts out her hand to help her up. And Norma doesn't take it. And there's nothing said about it. Everybody's fine. Everybody respects each other's boundaries. And I love that. And I think even when Barney tells Norma that he's trans, Norma's response is, "You don't need my permission." And I think that's what I like about the theme, if you will, part of the theme. There's a lot of themes, but part of the theme of the show is friendship is accepting your friends as they are. And I think that that's just beautiful. I think that's just wonderful. I think at least as an adult, it took me a long time to get to that place where I have friends that it's mutual, where we just accept each other as we are and we respect each other's boundaries. And I just like that kids are getting to see that played out in such a sweet way. Yeah.
I'm in my feeling my feelings era. And
Yay!
and the episode in season 2 that Bridie wrote, the Ferris wheel, it's, even when we were recording it, I was like, this episode slaps. I really enjoyed that episode so much. I love that Pugsley just has to be like, oh, but you're gonna get hurt, and Norma's like, yeah, and that sucks, but like that's really important, and it's like for me to feel, and like you don't get to decide if I get hurt or not, like, because we consent to that when we are like open with people and tell them we like them, that the possibility is like they might not like us back, and that like Barney and Logs end up really insecure with each other. And it's I've said this a lot, but I like that we don't treat our audience like dumb. Like that's like a pretty advanced lesson for a kid show, in my opinion. Like, feel your feelings, and it's okay to be uncomfortable, and that's part of life. Like being able to end an episode with like discomfort and uncertainty amongst, and also that gets the ball rolling for the like rest of the season, because it doesn't stop from there. Like, you know, it's like that happens, and then, you know, that begets Norma leaving, and then it begets, you know, Norma coming out, and Barney being his kind of normal avoidant self at times, and being like, I guess I'm just dead. And it's just, it's like, it's such a good catalyst for the rest. And kind of like, it's so fascinating for a catalyst of a show about people who love each other so much to be like, oh, we're all like, we're having a moment and we don't know how to move in this moment. So I think we all just have to feel a little sad. I just was like, I really loved that. I was like very floored by that choice and development. And again, it felt like kind of a complex storyline for a kid show, you know. And I know our fan base is quite expansive, but it was just, I loved it a lot.
Do you guys have a favorite fan memory? Like somebody that's come up to you or said something to you that's really touched you and has stayed with you?
I mean, for me, I went to a convention in New York called FlameCon about 2 months after the show came out. And I've done a lot of conventions selling comics, and I've usually done okay. I've had some bad ones. I did the last convention I did before the pandemic, like no one came to my table. And the one at FlameCon like never stopped, and it was just endless people, and there was cosplay, and I don't know. I mean, there's always stuff if anyone follows me on Instagram, my Instagram stories are just constant fan art. I see so much of it. Like, I can't think of one particular thing, although I've seen some very good Paulines this Halloween. And
oh, I can't wait. I hope we see so many characters from the show out on the street.
Which is really funny, because the whole plot of the series is people who look like Pauline getting abducted. So it's like you're testing fate. So I don't know. It feels really weird whenever I occasionally made posts saying like, please spread the word about the show and you know, whatever. But I didn't need to ask anyone to do that. Like, I'm not really on TikTok, and I remember a few days after it came out, someone just saying, by the way, like the TikTok search thing is like well over 1 million sort of searches. I literally don't do TikTok. I'm like a bit of I can't get my head around it, but yeah, it's just like, it's so nice. And I'm very much rambling and also in my feelings era, but I spent a lot of the production of this like terrified of what people would think, of the fan base, you know, if there would be one, if there wouldn't be one, what they would like say. And every day I like laugh at something I see. Like I love all the fan art and the cosplay, but I also love the like terrible memes. And the like one of my favorite things is that the fan base decided that Courtney was a croissant, and that became a joke and before we had written a joke about that in season 2.
Didn't you write that in after you saw that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't after we saw it. It was before. We just like, yeah, everyone that sees her says like, that's a pastry. And like day one, like 24 hours after it came out, the way people were talking about Courtney made me so happy, and like I laughed constantly. People would just post a picture of Courtney and just say the silly, or like, what is this funny creature?
This is by far my favorite.
Oh yeah.
You sent that to me while we were doing the musical episode because it's her Little Mermaid moment, and I still need like an actual print of that because it's with the skulls on her demon boobs. It's just so funny.
Yeah, that was my. Well, I sent that to Patrick as like, make this into a song. I don't know. I wasn't a succinct answer. I feel the love.
As voice actors, how did you first approach the role? Was the voice just naturally there? What was your first approach when you first heard about these characters and saw them?
Genuinely? Oh yeah.
I was told Bart Simpson. That was like truly the only, I think, direction that I got. And we were on, I don't know, it's been 2 years now, so I don't remember, but I believe it was Zoom or something, or I got notes from Jen, our casting director, just saying like, okay, can you make it like more raspy? I was like, okay. And then we went in ultimately when I got the job, and Hamish, I think at one point was like, I'm kind of nervous that you're going to like hurt your vocal cords the way you're doing this. And I would go home and drink a bunch of tea and be fine, but I still sometimes worry that I overdid it. But it's so fun and it's so her, and I think it's a unique voice for me that I haven't done. I've done a lot of animation and I haven't done anything like that. And I don't know. It was fun. Anything that's good, creative is always fun, and I had a good time.
I always, whenever I went home and had a sore throat, I was like, gosh, Emily and Alex must be dying.
A little better.
Insane voices, but I had read the comics, and when I heard you during our table read, I was like, that's Courtney. That is exactly how I thought Courtney would sound. And the same with Cody, and also the Tema Lucas voice. The truth is, the one that shocked me the most was the Pugsley voice, because I was like, I don't know what it's gonna sound like. But it works so well. Like I was like, oh, of course that's Pugsley. But I was just like, oh, I didn't even, because you kind of hear it in your head. When I was doing my audition, I was like, I know this guy. And then the person that was directing me at my agent's like studio, or the like studio in my agency, was like, can you do it more like Chris Pratt in Parks and Rec? And I was like, I guess. But I had read, like, was familiar with the comics at that point, and was like, I don't know, we'll see. And then when I actually went in for my callback, I was like, well, I want him to sound like his age. So I don't have like the lowest voice in the world, but I was like, I'm going to try to sound like what I sounded like when I was 16. But I also wasn't like on T at that point in my life. So it was really fascinating to think about what a like trans person sounds like. And I've also talked about this a bit in interviews, but like there is something that we joke about called T voice, where like when your voice drops because it's dropping late in your life, sometimes you get like a rasp, and there's also gay rasp, or gay fry. Like, so it felt like inherently queer to be like, okay, I'm gonna just talk how I talk, but like the like sort of young version of me that like was like nervous but also like over like unearned confidence. And it was like a weird balance to strike, where I was like, I think Barney is overconfident, but he's still a young person. And so how overconfident can you be when you don't know a lot about the world, that sounds really advanced. I mean, what I did was I went in and was like, this is how I talk to my dog. I have a friend who's like, whenever you're talking to Levi, I get jump scared because I'm like, that's Barney. So it's funny in that way. But it's, yeah.
I'd like to say that I went through a huge process and broke down who Norma was, but genuinely, when I got the script, I was just like, well, this is me. So more than anything, I think the breakdown that I got for the audition said something about like, she works at a theme park and she's sharing her knowledge about this theme park. And I was just like, well, that's definitely me. So I just kind of approached it like, how I mean, my voice naturally is kind of lower, but like when I get excited about things, it kind of goes up. So I, again, kind of like Zach said with Barney, I did think about like, okay, what is she's 17-year-old me, what does she sound like? 16, 17, oh my god, she ages at some point.
They age over the season.
Yes. She's a teenager. I was like, what would I sound like at that time? So that was really honestly my approach, because I think that when it comes to the essence and the core of Norma, it's me. So it just kind of comes out. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Amazing. We do have a comment here. Rain's Ratspity is wanting to know, if we get a season 3, are there any plans for it to be any more non-binary characters? Is there anything you can say about a season 3, first of all?
I think people worked out that we made season 1 and 2 kind of back to back, so that's why they came out so quickly. And season 3 is dependent on how well it's all done. I believe it's done well, but I don't have my like Netflix 1 month later meeting yet, because it hasn't been a month yet. And then we should know. And I don't know. I mean, it's been a weird year. I'm in this double space of like wanting to get people to like be positive, but also I don't want people to get disappointed or anything. But I'm pretty hopeful. I mean, to answer the actual question, there's all kinds of characters that we haven't introduced yet. I think I frantically told Zach all the plans for the season, because we did do like a little writer's room. And there's scripts for it, and it's just we need that go ahead from Netflix to say they want more. So as I said earlier, I feel bad telling people to like keep spreading the word and keep rewatching, but do that and it'll help.
I started a rumor by accident on Twitter because I got interviewed and they asked if I knew anything about season 3, and I think I said something like, all I can say is I know what would be planned. And it was like, and Hamish is dark and sick and twisted. And then an article came out on Digital Spy that was like, Zach Barrett teases season 3 of Dead End, and I was like, what? And I texted Hamish and I was like, so I may have done something bad. And it's all fine and whatever, but I don't know, like I really firmly believe this. Like I wept when I watched the end of season 2 with my best friends because it made me because it's beautiful, but also because I was like, I feel so spoiled by this show. I feel so spoiled to be part of a show that I like know all the things that happen in season 1 that pay off in season 2. And I want to continue to be spoiled, and I think we should be allowed to, given what we do with our show. There are just so many things that get made, and like not that many of them do the kind of thoughtful meditations on identity and also just like life and subversiveness and I don't know, whatever. But like I just like as a gay kid, like as a queer, like I was just like, you know what, I've had too many kids come up to me recently. I do orating as my day job, and I was in Fresno, and these like 2 teens came up to me, and they actually gave me these little doodles they did while I was talking of Pugsley and Barney on Post-its, and I asked how old they were, and one of them was like 16, and I was like, well, it's the middle of the school day, and and you are at Fresno City College right now listening to me talk. So that means you've left school. And one of the kids that came up to me asked, like, how do you be okay with yourself? And I was like, oh, we need another season desperately. Like, we deserve that, you know, because that, like, what do you say to that, you know? And it made me a little mad and also really grateful, because this is just so something that would have totally altered the trajectory of how much I liked myself growing up. And I want that to be the last kid that asks me that, you know. I'm sorry, that's quite cheesy and also a little bit emotional. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's the best show on earth. And I know I'm biased, but it's how I feel. I really, really love this show. And I was such a fan. Like, during the first season, I would just rewatch. And the same thing happened to me for season 2. And I know that there's so much that can and should and will, I'm saying it, is speaking it into existence. I've decided to believe in manifesting right now. That this show needs closure, and all of these characters deserve it, and all the kids that watch it deserve it. Anyway, that was long.
It's definitely going to hold such a huge place in history, being the first of its kind. And I hope moving forward, we see so many shows like this that can just be full of inclusion and show everybody on our television screens. Because I know, I mean, just even seeing the comments, it's meant so much to so many people, and it's been such a huge impact just to see somebody on TV that is like them and know that they're not alone. So thank you guys so much for coming today and talking with us. It's been such a pleasure having you and hearing about the show and your characters. Before you jump off, is there any place that people can find you to stay up to date on whatever's going on in your world?
I'm Hamish Steele everywhere.
Yeah, I'm Zach Barrack everywhere. I'm ZACHBARACK. It's spelled like Barack, like Obama, but it's Barrack. It's funny, when people used to Google me, the first thing that would come up was the interview with Zach Galifianakis and Barack Obama. But now it's that end, so things have shifted.
I mean, I am very well aware, because when we were casting you, that would come up a lot. I spent so much of my life Googling all of you for various reasons.
Terrifying. Speaking of, I'm Emily Osmond everywhere as well.
I'm Cody Kavita. If you type my name in, you should find me. But if not, it's that Cody girl. And I'm actually, because I have prints to sign, I'm going to do an Instagram live in just a bit, probably at 12. I need to have breakfast. So you can join me over on Instagram for that.
Yes, those who are watching, we decided to do the prints another time just because some did not get their prints today. And so we'll keep you guys updated with that. And if you still have not gotten a print, you can still get one at streamily.com, Dead End Paranormal Park. So thank you guys so much. We can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you guys for coming.
Bye.
Good to see you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.